Let me at the outset apologize for slight delay in starting the program. We are all familiar with Delhi and Delhi traffic jams and congestions, and our distinguished speaker got stuck up, and so he was delayed. My apologies for your valuable time, but I'm happy, extremely happy to welcome you all to this very special program today on the occasion of 117th birth anniversary of Padma Bhushan Pandit Banarsidas Chaturvedi. As you all know, Pandit Banarsidas Chaturvedi was the father of Hindi journalism, a distinguished writer, a parliamentarian, and a freedom fighter, and above all, a very sensitive human being who took up the cause and supported the struggles and aspirations of his fellow freedom fighters, of the literary and political and social activists of that period, and also the cause of the indentured migrant laborers from India, what we have in the form of the much talked about Indian diaspora issue today. It was Pandit Banarsidas Chaturvedi, after Mahatma Gandhi, who really supported the cause. But what few of us know is that he was a very versatile photographer, and his love and passion for the art, this particular art form, the art of photography, was really something which gave a kind of a particular relevance and standard to Hindi journalism. He illustrated it, he documented, he photographed, and he brought to public the visual delight in his journalism. And so this is one aspect which very few people knew about. Some of us know, but not many people know. So we thought we will take up this particular aspect of Pandit Banarsidas Chaturvedi's and remember him today through the art of photography. We have with us to speak on this occasion none other than Raghu Rai ji. Padma Shri Raghu Rai needs no introduction, but for the sake of joy and delight, I would just like to read out and reorient ourselves with the very, very good work that he has done. You know, Raghu Rai ji, the most popular photographer, in fact, the most senior-most photographer today, is known to have refined photojournalism. He has taken up to photography since 1965, almost 50 years of good work, and we all know, we all are familiar that his photo essays and photo documentations have been one of the most prized aspects of Indian literary heritage. And we are proud, we are very happy to have Raghu Rai ji with us today, and we wish him all the best in all his ventures. He has given photojournalism a great strength, a great refinement, and all his work, starting from Bhopal gas tragedy to Indira Gandhi, to Dalai Lama, to Varanasi, to Agra, to Taj, and whatnot. In fact, he has documented political, social, historical issues of India, and they form such valuable records today that any archive, any library just cherishes it and values it. Raghu Rai ji, we are very happy for your time, for giving us your time, and we welcome you. I also welcome my colleague, Professor Farhad Bashir Khan Sahib, the chairperson today. He is, of course, known to all of us here as the chairperson, or he is the professor for Professor Che Maulana Azad, and he's here at the Mass Communication Center. To him, photography is his life and bread. Well, we are very happy and we welcome all of you. My special welcome to the Chaturvedi family. We have Dr. Apurva Chaturvedi and Srimati Archana Chaturvedi and the little girl here. It is courtesy Dr. Apurva Chaturvedi and Srimati Chaturvedi that we have the very valuable Pandit Banarsidas collection in our archive. His photographs and his other literary material that are housed here have been really taken up with great interest by researchers in the last 1 year that we have had the collection. A lot of people have visited the archive and found the collection extremely useful. Even the photographic collection, which is a delight. His camera is here, his photographic collection is here along with other material, which is all there, and we are very grateful to you. But I will not stand between you and the distinguished speakers, so I hand the mic to Professor Farhad Bashir to kindly initiate the lecture.
Good afternoon to all gentlemen and ladies here. My friend Raghu ji. We are truly delighted with your presence here. I must congratulate Professor Sabiha Zaidi for putting together this brilliant afternoon. I welcome you all here, my fellow colleagues from Jamia who have come here despite their busy schedule, and these bright young students. I am happy that this lecture on photography and its position as an important tool in documenting history is on the occasion of the 117th birth anniversary of Banarsidas Chaturvedi. We all know him as a visionary freedom fighter, a fiery journalist, poet, a literary giant, but what we do not know about is his vast collection of images taken by him and his unparalleled visual contribution towards not only documenting history, but also telling comment on the times he lived in. This was indeed his lesser known intervention. I will keep my introduction brief, an uphill task indeed for someone of his abilities to contain his 89 years of existence in an introductory remark is most daunting a task. Born in Firozabad in 1892 to an Arya Samaji family, Banarsidas Chaturvedi walked this planet till 1981. I was drawn initially to him for he was a photographer who documented the time around the freedom struggle. The man's wit and sarcasm in his images that he clicked still rings as sharp today and hasn't lost its razor edge. Banarsidas isn't gently experienced over wine and cheese. Rather, let me unleash him upon you. His power and magnificence engulfs. He always first surprises you, and then he persuades you being, shakes you up, driving you out of your comfort zone, ruthlessly pushing his point, every word measured and cut to perfection. Never once the proverbial arrow misses its aim. I quote his opening remark at All India Hindi Journalist Convention, Mathura session, because the date was today in 1945. That is 24th December 1945. He was presiding on this gathering of most eminent writers of the time, not too long ago, well about exactly 64 years from today. So he said that despite being a huge fan of your big-heartedness, I cannot congratulate you today for your patience and far-sightedness. Forgive me for this bluntness, for you have chosen as your servant or guide such a person who himself doesn't know where he has to go tomorrow. If you have chosen me thinking that I am a dedicated, hardworking journalist who symbolizes the difficult lives that fellow journalists lead, then you have made a big mistake. Because your present condition today is that my present condition today is that of a parasite, and my life has never been that of austerity and perseverance. I do not want to keep you under any misconception. Punctuality, discipline, values such as these, which are mandatory for any and every ambitious journalist, are nowhere present in me, not even traces. Since you have decided to hammer me into playing the part of the grand doctor, I will, with utmost honesty, try and play this part. So this was him, yeah, and the humility and greatness, go together, and that is how he always been very. And there are a lot of anecdotes we hear about him in Firozabad and other places, where he was far more, down to earth than any one of this stature can be. So only for this reason alone, I have visited and revisited Banarsidas. When I say I have revisited him, I refer to an institution for a powerhouse of talent, a repository of information, and a living testament to the times that he lived in and left his imprint upon. He was a most remarkable writer, an intellectual stalwart, an activist, a sharp editor, a crusader for Indian diaspora, a most vocal advocate of all things secular, and most remarkable photographer. He was accomplished and acknowledged journalist, editor-in-chief of one of the most prestigious nationalist Hindi newspaper, Vishal Bharat, which he brought out from Calcutta, and also a cultural magazine called Madhukar. Banarsidas was also one of the most active members of the Rajya Sabha. Other milestone that he traversed, for which he needs to be revered, even after over half a century past, are his tireless work for the promotion of Hindi language, better working condition and professional training for journalists in both Hindi and other regional languages. He was talking about the vernacular press and its potential, which today stands as the most profitable venture when everything else is saturated to the hilt. He also worked extensively on making the classics of Russian literature available in Indian translations. In the context of Indian freedom struggle, he worked alongside the Mahatma, Nehru, C.F. Andrews, Tagore, fighting against the indenture system, publicly, vehemently criticizing the Kakori hanging, symbolic of politics of hate and violence. He also worked tirelessly for the cause of surviving freedom fighters and martyred freedom fighters' family. Notable among them were Prithvi Singh Azad, mother of Chandrasekhar Azad, and even the sister of young Bhagat Singh. His work inspired the Congress to institute Freedom Fighters Pension Scheme in 1972, under which the Home Ministry disbursed pensions to 1.7 lakh freedom fighters and recognized their contribution for the first time. It was clearly history in the making. His writing, his photographs were instrumental in writing it. Mr. Chaturvedi or Dadda has also shot some of the most brilliant portraits, people, landscape of his time. His sense of composition, his technical finesse, and the brilliance to capture the mood and the person in its entirety is uncanny. His sense of perspective and play with lines, shapes, form is intuitive. His use of the camera, light, angle, and was second to sharpness only to his razor sharp wit. He incidentally worked on Zeiss Icon and ECFA Prontor cameras, both medium format film cameras without the exposure meter or any accessory of convenience, even the rangefinder. One has to be exceptionally skilled photographer to be able to produce picture from those cameras, and one is talking from his personal experience. He was also an avid traveler. On his several foreign trips, he has some remarkable cityscapes. He has ghats of Banaras with their legendary saints and poets, humanist landscape. Raw, pulsating are his frames of people's movement that became the Indian freedom struggle. His most seminal work are portraits of his contemporaries, which include the likes of Ramdhari Singh Dinkar, Maithili Sharan Gupta, poet Nagesh, eminent politician and the architect of his Vishal Bharat, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, our very own founder of Jamia, Dr. Zakir Hussain, Shri Sundarlal Bahuguna. Of special mention is his close proximity with the legendary priest, educator, and freedom fighter C.F. Andrews. I now hand over the mic to Raghu Rai, another best thing to have happened to Indian photography. Raghu, of course, need no introduction as everybody knows his work and him. His work during emergency, Sanjay's mass family planning campaign, and Congress landslide defeat in the polls subsequently, the Bhopal gas tragedy and its aftermath, his work on living legendary musician of India, his books on Delhi and Kolkata. One of the best and the brightest photographer that this country has produced. I'm glad that he is here today among us so that I can share him with all of you. For all good things and the people should be shared collectively and partaken of. With these words, I now request Mr. Raghu Rai to please share his views on the topic of today.
Thank you, Khan Sahab, Zaidi ji. And the first thing I'd like to acknowledge the fact that when I landed here and I saw all of you seated, I felt a bit sheepish. You see, Spikmeke and other friends often send me to various institutions and colleges. And invariably, wherever I go, I find things are not in place. And everything is just, done in a way that you don't feel that strength and connectivity with the audience. But here it was so nice, and thank you so much for all of you being here. Now, Pandit Chaturvedi ji, I didn't know enough about him, but thanks, the introduction that you have given me about him seems like a man of all seasons, all in one, which is something very rare, I am just a photographer and I like to connect in whatever way I can. And basically, you see, we have a word in Hindi which is called darshan. Now, darshan, I'm sure all of us we know, is not just seeing somebody. Darshan is sometimes you walk into somebody's house or room or you meet somebody and the person is so much there, so transparent. And you can feel his energy, you can feel his presence, you can see his character, where he comes from. And when you meet such a person, you say, "Aapke darshan karke bahut acha laga." So, similarly, photography for me, a camera is an instrument of darshan. You see, I started taking pictures just by chance, because I did engineering, I worked with the government, got bored with it, came to stay with my brother, elder brother Paul, who's been a photographer for many years. And I discovered, all those who came to meet him were, photographers. And they only talked about photographs, cameras, lenses, and even my brother, he may not have enough clothes, but his suitcases will be full of films and photographs and equipment, so such was the madness. And I used to wonder what crazy lot they are, Till one day, one of his very nice friends, he was going to his village to take some photographs. Since I wasn't doing anything, so I said, okay, let me also go with him, and I asked my brother, just by the way, why don't you give me some camera? I'll also take some pictures. So, I went with him to a village in Haryana, and he was taking pictures of the children. It was evening time, and, all the children, they get excited when they see any photographer. So a whole lot of children, and this friend of mine was taking photographs of those children, and suddenly on the other side I saw a baby donkey standing there. It was late evening, the light was soft, landscape was very nice. And I just took that photograph of baby donkey. And when I came back, I showed it to my brother. No, showed it. He saw, what I have shot. And he said, this is a very good picture. So I said, really? And then he selected that picture. He made a print and sent it to London Times. The Times newspaper used to print half-page photograph, which had some humor, which had some irony, some strange feeling about it. So the Times newspaper printed half-page photograph with my name. And the money that I got for that photograph was enough for me to carry on for a month. So it was quite a kick. And I said, my God, this is something very exciting, Now, you see, what was happening in the process was that then I started carrying a camera with me. Not that I had ever thought that I'll become a photographer, but just like that. And the best thing about camera was that each time I put this camera on my eye, my concentration, my energy level went up, and I could focus on things that I was seeing through the camera. So it was not the fact that I wanted to become a professional photographer or anything, but it was a fascinating aspect of my life that suddenly I could connect with things, understand them better. And this is precisely, you see, when I say darshan, today when I look back, that my biggest darshan is through the viewfinder of the camera, that I so closely try to connect with everything around me. And in the process, I learn, I enjoy, I take my photographs, and when I come back and process them and see them today, of course, digital technology, everything has changed so much, which has become far more interesting and easier. And you see the works, and you get energized, you get charged, that there is so much to photograph. Now, you see, all kinds of photography is happening in this country and everywhere else in the world. And after globalization, so much of commercialization has happened to everything, From, even journalism today is not the same anymore, And the fact is that digital technology gives you so much access and with such ease to photograph anything and everything, anywhere and everywhere. And what it does, digital technology in the process, it makes things look even more colorful and more vibrant than they really are. Now, that is one aspect. The fact is that people doing fashion photography or industrial photography or commercial photography, I guess, the photographs that we see here are taken by Pandit. Is that so? No. Anyway, you see, the only thing where I stand and differentiate with, in terms of photography, what kind of photography one should be doing. Because, you see, last year we had French Cultural Department had invited some curators, some photographers, Indian and French, and there was a lot of debate going on, the purpose of photography, so different people were speaking in different languages. And one gentleman came from Italy and he said, the street photography is dead. Now it's time for conceptual photography, how to create an image, sitting anywhere, even in a studio, and it went on for too long. Now, when photography started about 160 years ago, the British brought two photographers to Calcutta. At that time, they had the East India Company. And those two photographers, Bourne and Shepherd, they started documenting the British Empire from Calcutta, very systematically. And some of those photographs are still available. And they are in collection of, in many houses, important places. Now, you see a photograph taken of Chaurangi Square 160 years ago. Now, Bourne and Shepherd, both of them were very sensitive photographers, and what they documented at that time was of worth, the documentation and the energy, the characters they captured, and the landscape and the temples they did, with a lot of feeling. Now, you see a picture of Chaurangi Square done 160 years ago, and a painting, say, done by a man like Hussain or Satish Gujral 160 years ago of the same square. When you look at the painting, you say, yes, very nice painting. But when you look at the photograph, your response is, oh my God, that's the way it used to be, or that's the way we used to be. So it's a photo history, photo documentation of our time. And this is precisely where I draw a line when children, youngsters want to do all kinds of photography and they mess around with all kinds of experiments. And in today's world, with digital technology, Photoshop, you can convert anything from anywhere to anywhere. And you look at those photographs and you say, oh my God, wow. What people, what energies they had, and the kind of cities we had, and how things are changing so fast. And you see, at that time, there was a problem, The cameras were huge, big size cameras. The lenses were slow. The films were very slow. And when they were doing portraits, they'll make you sit and sometimes tell you not to breathe, to that extent. Why? Because if you breathe and shake, they are going to give you long exposure and the photograph will not become sharp, So, this was the limitation. But in the process, this limitation gave them some magical strength in their portraiture especially. I'll explain it to you how. You see, today, in today's technology, we take a photograph at a fraction of a second, quick, and you click the picture and gone. Now, they make you sit. You as a subject, you make yourself available to the photographer, and there you are, sitting. And mentally and physically, you're completely there. Now, the spiritual part of it comes in how? That fraction of a second, whatever expression you have on your face, we click that, and it's done. But when a photographer's camera is slow, the films are slow, and you're made to sit for a longer period, and you are asked to look into the camera, your body is static, your face is static, but your eyes have the expressions, the energy, the movement is coming and going, that you can't stop, the emotions you can't stop. So what was happening in those limited kind of equipment and problems, that each face, the eyes were riveting, so strong. You look into their eyes and you see they are so much there. So being there is the thing that most of us, most of the time, we are programmed human machines. And we don't see 100%, we don't hear 100%, because we have the biggest computer sitting here which has been programmed for everything. So we listen to something and we say, yeah, this is what he's trying to say. And we see things and we move away because we know, what we are seeing. But really, I tell you, seeing in totality, the mental, the physical, and the spiritual, the inner energy and aura of things, that's what makes a good portrait or a good photograph of any given situation. And that's where your documentation becomes very important and serious. And for instance, today on so many different channels, 24/7 madness, the monster has to be fed every second of it. They don't even have time to think and concentrate and do something sensitive and meaningful on television. And now you have super wide angle lenses, and you go bang into the character because, somebody else will push you aside. So your camera goes right into the person with a super wide angle. They distort your face, your nose, your eyes, and, you're looking funny on the screen. And this is how they are doing things. Same is the situation in news photography and documentation, that things have become so easy that today, those were the years when we'll buy one lens, fixed focal length, if we get to know it's available, so-and-so is selling it, we rush to that place or person and buy it. And that fixed focal length, we'll use it for days and months together, so that, when I use it on my camera, a particular lens of some focal length, I know exactly how far do I have to stand to get an experience of the space and the person. Because I have used it so much that I'm familiar with the kind of distance and space it gives me. And today, these zoom lenses these youngsters use without any respect when we say we capture the truth, the reality around us. The reality is the way human eye sees, and not the way wide angles and telephotos do the distortion of the situation. So when we say we capture reality, it has to have that perspective, that honesty. Like many photographers, they use big telephoto lenses, in order to create effects, But the fact is that human eye sees everything is in focus, and everything coming in proper perspective. So even if I use a wide angle or a telephoto, I make sure that no distortion is happening, nobody's features or faces distorted, and everything is in focus from here to infinity, and this is how the eye sees. And this is primarily the fact that we see, we capture the reality, so your image must look a slice of reality. This is precisely, these little things make a difference to your character as a responsible photographer. And then the magic of it, the moments, what happens that, happy, snappy, visual pleasures, bulk of us are so much influenced by Hindi cinema. And Hindi cinema I call fantastic nonsense, because bulk of the cinema, the sets, the girls, the guys are so attractive. And if you look at the contents, either it's repetitive junk or it's utter rubbish. And now, of course, some young directors have started handling new themes and new ideas also. But eventually, it must become Bombay chaat masala. So, when Bombay cinema is so effective, and that's the only common culture we have in India, unfortunately. And I have seen it, you go to Lakshadweep, you go to Kanyakumari, you go to Northeast, anywhere, you see Aishwarya Rai's and Bachchan's and so and everybody else, and people have more knowledge about them than anybody else, which is very unfortunate part. Why I'm talking about this? Because the influence of Hindi cinema is so strong on our characters, on our, mindset and everything, and especially in photography, it's terribly influenced, And bulk of the shows that you see, photographic shows, they tend to bore you beyond a point, because they look very pretty pictures, very nice pictures. And also, when we say documentation doesn't mean you go and click a picture of him or them together and that becomes a documentation. Documentation is precisely capturing the character and the energy of the people and the place. And that energy is captured, जो हमारे ऊर्जा, energy जिसको बोलते हैं. If your photograph doesn't have the current, it doesn't stay the test of the time. And the current comes through really very gentle nudges, and whispers. Situations sometimes whisper, You are walking through the street and you look at things and people and life and interaction, and you can see, some situations say, hey, look at me. And you look at them and you say, wow, kya baat hai. To wo jo kya baat jab dil kehta hai, that's the moment to capture it. But unfortunately, most of us, most of the time, as I said earlier, we are programmed human machines. What photographs we take, which are already stored here. Because human being, the worst thing about mankind is that we want convenient, easy, nice things. So what is nice and convenient, which is already programmed here, We've seen similar image, So in another situation, we see similar kind of photograph. Yes, this is a photograph. So we end up doing repetitive junk all over. But when any youngster asks me, can you give us one point that will change our lives? And I say, please don't take all those good pictures which are stored here. Because the moment you get rid of this storage system here and come from the heart and from the whispers and the nudges that you get as you're going along, then nature has got so much to offer. And I have seen it when you make yourself available to the situations, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And when nature sees that this child has been there for quite some time, and I tell you, nature opens up such avenues, such things for you that you can't even imagine. Nature has treasures, and no matter how smart and intellectually evolved human being you are, creativity lives beyond intellectualism and philosophies. Let me tell you, first of all, it's a moment of realization and experience that you go through it, and then you say, oh my God, this is what it was. And then it becomes your philosophy. Then it becomes, a piece of whatever, literature, or for writer, for photographer, for painter, for musician. I have seen Ali Akbar Khan Sahab darbari baja rahe hain, bajate bajate, or he was such a serious musician, he'll never smile, he'll never look at anybody. And I have seen कि बजाते 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 उनकी आंखें खुल गईं क्योंकि उसने सुर लगा दिया बीच में. You see, these are the kind of sur we need, that they should play through you. You become the instrument. And I have seen it. You see, music has been the greatest inspiration for me, because I think, like when I go into any situation or do any story, I try to work very hard and I try to get as much as I can. But when I come back and look at it, I say, aha, है तो सही, लेकिन फिर भी वो कम है. वो है ना कि हजारों ख्वाहिशें ऐसी कि हर ख्वाहिश पे दम निकले. जितने भी निकले फिर भी वही कम ही रह जाते हैं. पर संगीत जो है, मैंने ये एक्सपीरियंस किया है कि कभी कभी ऐसे ऐसे राग कुछ हमारे उस्तादों ने और पंडितों ने बजाए हैं कि जो जैसे दरबारी राग अमीर खान साहब ने बजाया, मालकौंस भीमसेन जी ने गाया, कि उसका एक्सपीरियंस इतना कंप्लीट है कि आप सुनने. मैं टेक्निकली ज़्यादा नहीं जानता हूँ रागों के बारे में, लेकिन ये कि उनकी रेंडरिंग, उनकी जर्नी, उनकी एक्सप्लोरेशंस इनटू दैट राग आर सो डीप एंड सो रिच. आफ्टर हियरिंग दैट राग यू फील देयर इज नथिंग एल्स. मैं बल्कि आपको अली अकबर खान साहब की बात बताऊं. आई एम डूइंग अ बुक ऑन क्लासिकल म्यूजिशियंस बिकॉज इन माई चाइल्डहुड आई वॉन्टेड टू बिकम अ म्यूजिशियन. नौकरी लगी थी तो मैंने एक रिकॉर्ड प्लेयर ख़रीदा, और जो पहला मैंने एलपी ख़रीदा वो देश मल्हार था, आपका बजाया हुआ. कहते हाँ याद आ गया, हाँ बहुत पुराना. तो मैंने कहा खान साहब, जब मैं किसी संगीत को सुनता हूँ और मुझे अच्छा लगता है तो मैं हर रोज़ दिन रात उसी को ही सुनता हूँ ताकि वो मेरी रगों में रच जाए. क्योंकि जो मुझे फोटोग्राफी से काम करते हुए जो पकड़ में ज़िंदगी इतनी नदी की तरह बहती है कि पूरी तरह 100% पकड़ में नहीं आती है, तो कुछ ना कुछ अधूरा रह जाता है. तो संगीत में जो है मुझे बड़ी फुलफिलमेंट सुन के आती थी. तो मैंने कहा खान साहब, और एक दिन मैं आपका राग जो है देश मल्हार आधी रात को बैठा अकेले में सुन रहा था. तो सुनते सुनते मेरे दिल से आवाज़ निकली, खान साहब आप जो कह रहे हैं पूरा सच कह रहे हैं. तो तब खान साहब के चेहरे पे आधी सी इधर हंसी, उनकी एक गाल उठती थी तो छोटी सी हंसी आई. तो बड़े प्रेम से हमने शाम बिताई. तो फिर कहने लगे चलो मैं आपको छोड़ दूं. तो जब हम बाहर निकले तो देखा कि उनके ऊपर कंस्ट्रक्शन हो रही थी, उनके घर के ऊपर. तो मैंने कहा खान साहब ये क्या कंस्ट्रक्शन करा रहे हैं? कहते हैं देखो ये मैं साउंड प्रूफ कमरा बनाऊंगा और जब ये बन गया तो फिर मैं इसमें बैठ के जब मेरा मन किया करेगा तो बजाऊंगा. मैंने कहा वाह साहब. बिफोर आई से एनीथिंग ही टर्न्स टू मी एंड ही सेज, और अगर सच्चा सुर लग गया तो आपको भी सुनाऊंगा. तो देखिए ये थी कनेक्टिविटी और 100% कम्युनिकेशन. मैं राग नहीं जानता हूं तो नहीं जानता हूं, लेकिन मैं अगर रसिक हूं और मैं अगर दिल और रूह की बात कर रहा हूं और आपका जादू मुझे छू गया है, तो ये जो कंप्लीट कम्युनिकेशन है थ्रू योर मीडियम इज व्हाट इज सो मैजिकल एंड सो इम्पोर्टेंट. कि आज मैं फोटोग्राफी को उतनी ही सीरियसनेस से परसू करने की कोशिश करता हूँ. मैं आपको ये भी बता दूँ कि जब मैंने mid-60s में शुरू किया था, जब मैं सीरियसली इन्वॉल्व हो गया, और जो पैशन तब था मुझ में, उससे ज़्यादा रेस्टलेसनेस मुझे आज है. और मुझे सांस लेने का समय नहीं मिलता है उस वक्त जब मैं काम करता हूँ, क्योंकि ज़िंदगी इतनी विशाल है, so much of interactive experience. हिंदुस्तान देखिए, मैं आपको बताऊं कि वेस्ट में ये bulk of the influences come from the West as far as photography is concerned. और वेस्ट के मास्टर्स जो हैं, हेनरी कार्टियर ब्रेसों, रॉबर्ट फ्रैंक, यू नेम एनीबडी, दे वुड टॉक अबाउट कैप्चरिंग अ मोमेंट इन स्पेस. तो भाई all over the world, everybody is capturing moments in space, and thousands of photographers have captured great moments in space. तो सवाल ये उठा कि हिंदुस्तान जो मल्टी रिलीजियस है, जो मल्टी कल्चरल है, जिसका लैंडस्केप हिमालय से, बैक वाटर से, वैली से, फ्रॉम एनीवेयर टू एनीवेयर बेहिसाब है, जहाँ हर धर्म प्रैक्टिस किया जाता है, जहाँ पे दुनिया की हर बात मुहैया है, तो उसका एक्सपीरियंस इस कंट्री और इस कल्चर का जादू जो है, यहाँ पे so many centuries have learned to live side by side at the same time. And that's the most magical thing for a photographer. I tell you, foreign photographers also who come here, they are fascinated, they are blown out of their minds कि क्या energy है इस देश की, कितने levels पे ये जीता है. So the experience of India, a moment in space is not enough. So the experience of India has to be multi-layered. And in any given situation, you know, you can see so many moments living together simultaneously. तो मेरा अगर बस चले तो मैं एक तस्वीर खींच के पूरा देश उसमें भर लूं, जो कभी भी नहीं हो सकता. तो I have started using panoramic camera where the experience is like this, you know, it photographs situations like this, not like this. तो उसमें यह है कि each photograph in that panoramic vision has so many moments. You can take out 4 or 5 pictures from one frame. ये मेरी भूख है, ये मेरी प्यास है, और ये मेरी जो है सबसे बड़ी एक्सप्लोरेशन है कि मैं चाहता हूँ इतना कुछ एक तस्वीर में आए कि लोग चंधिया जाएं देख के कि क्या देश है, क्या एनर्जी है. तो ये दर्शन जो है मुझे यहाँ तक लाया है, और मैं आपका बहुत आभारी हूँ कि आपने मुझे मौका दिया अपनी दिल की बात कहने का. और भाषण इससे ज़्यादा तो मैं दे नहीं सकता. और अगर कोई क्वेश्चंस, बातचीत हो, तो जैसा भी, जो भी सवाल हो, जो भी बातचीत हो, लेकिन ये कि ये मेरा धर्म कर्म है. मैं ये भी कहना चाहूँगा कि राम, कृष्ण, बुद्ध, अल्लाह, मोहम्मद, क्राइस्ट कोई भगवान नहीं थे. वो ये सारे महापुरुष जो थे वो सुप्रीम एनर्जी से जुड़े हुए थे. अगर वो भगवान होते तो वो मरते नहीं, वो जाते नहीं हमें छोड़ के. तो वो भी हमारी तरह थे. फ़र्क ये था कि वो सुप्रीम एनर्जी जो हम सब पूरे ब्रह्मांड को एक रिदम, एक एनर्जी देती है, वो उससे जुड़े होते थे. तो वो अगर किसी बीमार को भी छूते थे तो वो सुप्रीम एनर्जी उनके थ्रू काम करती थी, एंड दे कुड क्योर यू. तो मैं तो जब बच्चों से बातचीत करता हूँ तो क्रिएटिविटी, मैं उनको कहता हूँ क्रिएटिविटी तो बड़ी मामूली अंदर की बात है. क्रिएटिव इंडिविजुअल तो क्या, आप भगवान बन सकते हैं, क्योंकि आपकी आत्मा, आपका जिस्म, आपका माइंड, अगर उनमें वो कनेक्टिविटी आ जाए और अगर आप उस सुप्रीम एनर्जी से करें तो शायद कल के भगवान आप में से कोई बना होगा और उसका नाम आप कोई भी रख लें. तो क्रिएटिव एनर्जी जो है, और ये जो खेल है इस मीडियम का, किसी भी मीडियम का एक्चुअली, अलाउद्दीन खान साहब, अली अकबर खान साहब के बारे में कहते थे कि इसके हाथ में अल्लाह का सुर खेलता है. देखिए, ये बात बड़ी कमाल की है कि अल्लाह जो है उसके हाथ में आके बजाते हैं. कैसे बजाते हैं? क्योंकि उसका पूरा कनेक्टिविटी जो है ना उस सुप्रीम एनर्जी से होती है, और जब उस कनेक्टिविटी से आप जो भी बजाएंगे या गाएंगे या कहेंगे, उसमें उतनी ही शक्ति होती है. तो यंगस्टर्स को ये समझना चाहिए कि जो हम कर रहे हैं, या आपने चतुर्वेदी जी का जिक्र किया उनका, या कल को मेरा जिक्र हो या किसी और का जिक्र हो, हम सब जो हमारे बच्चे हैं आज उनके लिए ये सब मुहैया है, सब अवेलेबल है. इस स्पेस में ये सब कुछ है. इतना संगीत रखा है, इतना आर्ट रखा है, इतनी एनर्जी रखी है हर लेवल की कि बच्चों आप सिर्फ प्यासे और भूखे अगर आप पीने के आदी हो और एक्सप्लोरर हो तो सब कुछ आपके लिए इतना आसान और अवेलेबल है। सिर्फ एक बात है और वो है डेडिकेशन, जिसको बोलते तपस्या। और जिस दिन आप उस एनर्जी से चलें, सच हम जब छोटे थे तो हमें कोई ये समझाने बताने वाला नहीं होता था। हमने कितने सालों कितनी डायरेक्शंस में क्या क्या नहीं किया, किधर किधर नहीं भटके। अब जाके जब बात समझ में आने वाली है तो हम ये चाहते हैं कि कम से कम हमारे बच्चे जो हैं वो ऐसा समय मत बिगाड़ें और अपनी राह देखें और उस राह में एक्सप्लोर करें। आई टेल यू, ही इज़ वेटिंग फॉर यू टू गिव यू दैट मैजिकल पावर। सो सबसे कीमती बात वो है विच आई लाइक टू शेयर विद यू। थैंक यू सो मच।